From Smokey Robinson to Barack Obama, who is this woman who has curated over 3,000 interviews documenting the lives and experiences of Black Americans from all walks of life? Harvard-trained attorney and executive director and founder of the HistoryMakers, Julieanna Richardson is joining us today. I'm Melanie Formosa, your host. Julieanna, thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here with you, Melanie. Thank you. That was a great intro, I want to say.
Oh, thank you, Julieanna. You were an actress, right? That was your starting point. What happened?
That was my starting point. Well, I really wanted a career on the stage, and my father, who I loved and adored, I'm a daddy's girl, had his sights on something else and really wanted me to go to law school. So I started out at Brandeis University as a theater major, but then by my sophomore year, I was American Studies and Theater.
Wow, so we have your dad to thank.
We have my father to thank in many, many, many ways, because essentially what we're doing is about American studies, and we're actually telling stories like theater.
You had a lot of life transitions. You went from theater to law school, getting a JD from Harvard, to then the HistoryMakers. How have you handled and navigated those turns in your life?
I've often thought of my life as a series of intense moments. I think many people would say that I'm a workaholic, but I've had to feel that I would lead a passion-filled life, and that I wanted to make a difference. And what I would say is that all roads really have led to where I am now, and all things that I've done in my life really prepared me for taking on this project.
How have you stayed so motivated, though, to give up what you were rooted in, for instance, law, to then completely change course?
I think that the motivation, sometimes I think that I've been motivated by fear, fear of failure, but I also have been motivated to really make a difference in the world. I tell the story that I grew up in a small town called Newark, Ohio, which is right outside of Columbus, the capital. And I was the only black kid in my class in this town where there were 1,000 blacks out of 50,000 whites. And the teacher asked us to talk about our family backgrounds, and everybody's hands went up, and I didn't know mine. And so that feeling of not knowing really stayed with me. I would call it haunted me in some respects. And I don't think I realized it as much about that until I was at my sophomore year at Brandeis University, doing research on the Harlem Renaissance and learning how much black people had done, in the arts. And none of that had I known. None of the people that I came to know, like Langston Hughes and Countee Cullen and Lee Whipper and lots and lots of people. A man named Dick Campbell, who was a textbook, knew everything about blacks in theater. And who I was lucky enough to interview, Butterfly McQueen, who had starred in Gone with the Wind. And it was a defining moment for me to find that I, as an African American, had this rich history that I knew nothing about. So I would say that a lot of passion to make a difference and to document this history is really what keeps me motivated.
Wow. So would you say that as an undergrad in college, and maybe even before that, as a child, as an adolescent, did you have an inkling that life was calling you to do something great?
No, I don't think so. I mean, as I grew up in a coal mining town outside of Pittsburgh for the first 9 years of my life. And no, I had no idea that this is what would happen. And so I think, a lot of life's journeys and paths, we don't know where those paths will take us. But I really believe that if someone can find passion in their life and they have the discipline to work hard, that almost anything in life is possible.
You must have faced challenges along the way, perhaps as a woman, as a Black woman. Did you ever feel that those challenges boosted your strength and your self-confidence, or did they hinder you only?
I think my self-confidence, I came out of being in a family that where I had a father who was a nurturing father, but they expected a great deal of me. But I also want to say that I have constantly, probably even to this day, feel the burdens of being a Black female and all that comes with it. I live in a world of inequities. I was taught to live in a world of inequities, but sometimes that gets old and you wonder sometimes. I remember starting out as a young lawyer thinking, when I get in my 60s, I will have the respect. And still, to this day, whether it's the project and just trying to raise the money, because when I first envisioned the project, we did a business plan and it said that we would have to raise $30 million. And my name wasn't Oprah Winfrey or Steven Spielberg. So I don't think a lot of people thought I was serious about that or that I could be successful with that. But we have raised $30 million and more.
Wow, that's incredible. As a lawyer, do you feel that your background in law has prepared you for this film series?
Yes, I do not. I won't say that. I would say that law very much was a very important part of me being successful with this. I think the combination, though, because I think that the greatest gift that someone could be given is to be creative. And so that has stayed with me my whole life. And on the other hand, I would not have been able to approach this project, which I started on my dining room table when I was unemployed and without a job. And the stories that I'd done when I was your age came back to me, and the power of that. And I sat and started sketching things out and doing research. And so law definitely did play a role, but I think the creativity of my creative background also played an equally important role. And I want to say that because our main fundraiser is PBS TV taping. And had I not had that background, I would not have been able to produce the programs that we've done, and we've done now 36 of them.
Do you have any anecdotes, perhaps, that you haven't shared publicly before that you would like to share now that have shaped who you are today?
Melanie, I would say, one, you're doing a very good job of an interview. You're asking me questions that I've not been asked before. And so I want to say that I think you hold great promise. So I do want to compliment you that way. But I would say that there are, like the first beginning part of this project, people really didn't really know what I was doing because archives sound old and dusty and not of much use. And so a lot of times people would, they understood that I gave, events. But they didn't really understand all the work behind what was behind. And so I think in the beginning years, those were really fun years because no one was really paying so much attention. And I was able to envision and dream, in many ways about what could be possible. And so a lot of what people see now, because we're now, as we speak, Stony Brook is actually one of our newest subscribing institutions. So everybody, faculty and students on Stony Brook's campus are going to be able to work with our digital archive. So 11,000, all 11,000 hours that we've recorded in 413 cities and towns across the United States and in countries where there were African American expatriates, like Norway, the Caribbean, and Mexico. All of that is now available even on your iPhone. So that is exciting to me. But in terms of anecdotes, I guess, like time on the road, I don't often talk about our trips on the road publicly. But if people were, we've always had a small team of usually just the interviewer and the videographer. I would insist on excellence, and so I've been blessed with a very small video team. In fact, Matthew Hickey is with me today as we're recording this. And he was actually our first videographer and has worked with us all this time for 20 years. And so we often will start, at 8 in the morning, and we're often finishing up, 8, 9 o'clock at night, doing 2 interviews a day, 10 in a week. And it's just, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like you're in a constant state of discovery as you sit and interview people for 4 to 5 hours, at a time. And we often call it magical. So the bonding that happens on the road is a very special bonding because my crew with me have built this really one interview at a time. And to see people using it now is just really amazing.
What is your biggest takeaway from your life, from your career, from your success? One piece of advice that you could give us.
I would tell you and anyone else listening to who are just starting your careers that to live a passion-filled life because I think it's really important to find what you in life are intended to do, though in many ways that can be a lifelong project to do that. I also would say that it's important to be a person of your word, to remember those who've helped you along the way, and also act always with a sense of ethics, because that often has been missing in today's society. But also believe that you will be able to find your purpose and what you're intended to do.
Well, thank you for imparting that wisdom. I totally agree. Thank you, Julieanna, for your time.
We look forward to being part of the Stony Brook family. Thank you, Melanie.
When we come back, my partner Nia will unpack the making of the History Makers. I'm Melanie Formosa.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm Nia Watley, here with Julieanna Richardson. We've learned about your life story, but let's talk about your life's work. So can you tell us a little bit about the History Makers?
Well, the History Makers has grown to be the nation's largest African American video oral history archive. We basically interview Black leaders or people who have also had an inside view in terms of the Black experience. But we interview them about their lives, and we've created the largest attempt to record the Black experience since the WPA slave narratives, which really recorded the lives of former slaves. So there had been no attempt to record the 20th century, and now we're in the 21st century. So that's why it's important. Essentially, we take people, Nia, into the lives of Black people, which I think is really important in the times that we're living in right now.
I completely agree with you. So this is a burning question that I have. Who is your favorite person, if you can pick one? I think I would have to say Michelle Obama, but I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Who's your favorite?
We haven't yet been able to interview Michelle Obama, which is
Yeah.
really, we had to wait. We waited too long, and then the election, and then they were in the White House, so we still have to work on that. But she knows that. But one, we actually interviewed President Barack Obama when he was the Illinois State Senator. And the day that he came to the office, he was, he talks about being tired because he was having to commute between Chicago and Springfield, and probably was really trying to find a career path, out of the state Senate. After all, he had been the first black to be head of Harvard Law Review. So I think he was looking at that time. But it was, but the thing so amazing about that interview, it still holds up at the test of time. And when the campaign for presidency was coming, they sent a team here to look at the interview just to check it out. So that, and then another interview that I've liked was Katherine Dunham. She was the inventor of black dance in this country, and when we went to interview her, she was in her 90s. Harry Belafonte and his wife had moved her to assisted care living facility in New York from St. Louis, where she had moved after her time in Haiti. A lot of things about her interview was just completely fascinating. This is a woman that, when she starred in the film Cabin in the Sky, her legs were insured by Lloyd's of London for $250,000. This is a woman who took a dance troupe without grants, 40 people in a dance troupe. She traveled around Europe and Africa, and kept that troupe alive, and it's known as the Dunham technique, and still to this day people study and dance the Dunham technique. And also because she was very, very bright. She studied at the University of Chicago after her brother had studied. So there are lots of intrigue and things around that interview that was really quite amazing. And when we went to interview her, there were always the Dunham dancers there. In fact, this is unique for us because we usually just interview the person, but we interviewed other dancers and even her daughter, who had come over from Italy, where she resided.
That's pretty cool. So I know you guys are based in Chicago. How do you pick your interviewees?
We have lists now of people who've been referred to us. We do our own research. Our focus is really trying to build a documentary record of the black experience across all kinds of disciplines, whether it's the arts or business or civic engagement or politics or religion, music, entertainment, STEM, even fashion and beauty, sports. So we look across that whole spectrum, and we're really trying to document what has not been documented in society. In many ways, I think we see it played out today in the time that we're all living in and that you're coming of age in, that so few know about the black experience, and that impacts American society as a whole in not such a positive way. And so in many ways, I would refer to myself now as an activist, archivist, even though that's not my training.
That's pretty cool. I was telling my mom I got to interview you today, and so I'm going to ask her a question when I told her. I was like, I'm interviewing Julieanna Richardson, and so she was like, you need to ask her, how do I become a historian as a black woman at home? So that's her question.
Well, I mean, everyone right now, we need so much documentation in the black community. And I would even say outside, I would say what is really documented in American society are white males, not even so much white females. But she should basically get her tape recorder out and start asking questions. And we often, with our process, we go back and try to create the documentary record for, family life. So how far back do you know about your family history, both on your mother's side and your father's side, or anyone else who was important in someone's growing up? And that's really critical, that part. And then, we move forward. One of the questions we've made mandatory is what sights, smells, and sounds remind someone of their childhood. And, in a way of reawakened memory and bringing that to fore. So there are lots of things. So I would tell your mother to take out her tape recorder. The other thing is, how much do you and the family know of your, of your background and, of your family history? Because you could take this opportunity to start learning about that. Because even, Nia, if that is not on your mind sight now, you, like I'm sure your mother in time, you will also be thinking, I wish I'd asked that question. I wish I knew that. And I don't. I never bothered to ask.
I guess going off of that, how did you organize all of the archives so that I can try to help her? Because I'm sure she'll pull her tape recorder out and now she'll have all of this footage. She won't know what to do with it.
Well, let me say that we're all archivists in some respects now, if you have a PDA or a phone, because we're saving photos, we're saving memories. People have their social media accounts, though that should not be necessarily confused with archives, because there's a discipline with that. People are trained professionally. I didn't come out of professional training, but I could not have done a project like this unless I immersed myself in the world of archives. And our project has been surrounded by the best of the best. We're housed at the Library of Congress. They became our permanent repository. We became part of the nation's patrimony in 2014. We were the most organized collection that had come in there. And in many ways, they said that, we saved them $1 million because we were so organized. We have a close working relationship with them, so everything has to be, you have to develop a taxonomy, or there's also things like metadata. So you have it extremely organized, what is under childhood, what is under career, what is under family life, what are the occupations. And so that organization allows you then to find things, because at the end of the day, and for the Stony Brook family in working with our digital archive, everything is searchable by image and text. And that work that people see took this organization 18 years to build. Everything's transcribed, everything's searchable now. The new digital archive can be accessed by the seeing and hearing impaired. You can get it on your iPhone, so it's now accessible on the cloud. Those were things that I don't know if I could have thought possible back then. We were taping on videotape, but then in the process during the time period, we've digitized everything that's part of the collection. So that's the main thing, is that's important. And I do want, your mother's interest is of great interest to me, because every day that we don't do interviews and there's someone dying in the Black community, we're losing parts of our history. So I'm majorly concerned not just about the interviews themselves, but the personal collections of the people we interview, whether they be paper records or photographs or emails or AV materials, speeches, reports. I'm so concerned that when loved ones are dying, that the family members are going in just trying to get things situated, and there goes our history being thrown away. Almost forests of history are being thrown away now.
Share that concern with you. I can see, especially from me being so young, I'm 21, when my grandpa pulls out his camera, I'm like, can you put that away? I don't want to take any more pictures. That's not what I want. Poppy, you're always taking pictures. can we not take a picture today? But I'm understanding from talking to you how important it is that he takes that picture, that he documents that memory. You know, we're not going to remember that time 20 years from now, and he's not always going to be here 20 years from now. So I would definitely bring that back to my family, and I hope that other families adopt it into their lifestyle. Become an archivist.
Right, or mindset, let's put it that way, or practice. Yes. that we all are more intentional about it. I mean, in many ways, your generation is better set up for documentation just because of the notion of social media. So there is that documentation going on, but a lot of the people that are now in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, they never thought of that. And so we're about to lose large swaths of our history if we're not, you know, as successful as we want to be. And we've done, you know, we're the only long-scale recording for a lot of the people that we interview. So when people pass away, family members often are reaching out to us. Because they're learning often about the people that were their loved ones that they grew up knowing.
Thank you for this stunning piece of work. Your archive is now available to all of us here at Stony Brook, and we are so appreciative. I want to say congratulations and good luck on the rest of 2021, Julieanna. Thank you.
And I want to thank you, Nia. Both you and Melanie did a great job today, and I want to also particularly thank the Stony Brook family, and I want to do a special shout out to Professor Zebulon Molesky because he has been working with the digital archive, and I want everybody to be as excited about using it as he. So it's all there for you as students and faculty to dig in and make things happen with. So I want to thank you very much.
You're welcome.